Good evening and welcome to Roundtable. Today at the Roundtable is Dr. Ajantha Dharmasiri. He is the Management Consultant and the Senior Faculty Member of the Postgraduate Institute of Management, University of Jayawardenepura. And he identifies himself as a person who has been an engineer of electrics and now who has transformed himself into an engineer of hearts and minds. So good evening, Doctor.
Good evening.
So that's actually a very interesting intro that when I asked about yourself, you gave me about being an engineer of electricals to the engineer of mind. What is the story behind?
Well, it's a long journey. Actually, it talks about my career so far. I started off as a management trainee, having graduated as an electrical engineer. Then I was handling production and then moved into handling people. So I was doing training at the beginning, and then slowly started doing the other areas of human resource management. And when I developed liking towards managing people, I started doing my MBA, which is also more into the human resource areas. And when I did my PhD, I studied the strategic orientation of human resource managers in South Asia, which again gave me an orientation towards discovering people more and more. So I would say I have gone through this transition from an engineer of electrical to an engineer of hearts and minds, where I occasionally give shock waves to people.
Occasionally give shock waves to people, in the sense?
In the sense that when I conduct training programs, I tend to challenge people, because one thing I fundamentally look into training is that to change the way people think and approach their work traditionally, basically encourage them to have out of the box thinking. So in order to facilitate that, you have to ask the fundamental question, why? Why do we do things over and over again in the same manner? So if you do things in the same way, you get the same results. If you do things differently, you get different, perhaps better results. So that approach I tend to enjoy, and it has worked in the past.
So you work as a senior faculty member of the Postgraduate Institute of Management, and in addition to that, are you also working in the corporate sector? What do you basically engage in?
Well, Deepamala, I consider myself as a multiple role player. I am primarily a teacher and a lecturer, and I am a researcher, and I am a trainer, and I am a consultant, and I am a supervisor of students' research, and I play a role of an administrator as well, and also a citizen and other family roles involved. So I would say I don't attach to any particular private sector, public sector organization other than Postgraduate Institute of Management, which has become my second home for the past 5 years. But I enjoy working in terms of involving in consultancy assignments, in training assignments, in local as well as abroad. So when I meet people and when I come to know them and when I help them to solve their issues and problems, I bring back in return those learning experiences for me to share with my student community.
So, right, Doctor. So now you also said that when you are looking at results, if you keep doing it the same way, you will end up with the same results, but if you change it, you will get different results. And also now you are an engineer of hearts and minds. So putting these two contexts together, you were interested in speaking and focusing on leadership, which is a main constituency in the field of management. So let me first start this discussion asking you, why is there a need for leadership?
Basically, Deepamala, I would put this into the setting in terms of 3 C's. First thing is the context in which we need the leadership, and the content as to why, as to what the leadership is all about, and the conduct, the process of behaving as a leader. So I would say, to start off with the context, the world is going through a turbulent time. As we saw very clearly, there were 3 C's that engulfed the whole world. The credit crunch that we saw very clearly, which led to a global recession, and also the climate challenge, where we are still experiencing, which might occasionally erupt, causing a lot of disruption for humankind, and also the man-made chaos, the terrorism and other associated ill wills. So where these 3 C's have made the world going through a very turbulent time. And as one veteran management thinker, Peter Drucker, very clearly said, in turbulent times there is a great demand for leadership. So leaders make the difference and leaders deliver results. So there is a need for leaders to take their teams through the turbulence in order to reach the desired results.
So you were describing the context basically.
Yes.
And then you also referred to content, but before that, can we describe as to what exactly leadership is, because there's diverse definitions. So is there any definition you would like to pick and expand on?
I would say you are absolutely right, Deepamala, because I read somewhere leadership is the vastly researched but least understood phenomena on earth. So if you go to a management bookstore, you get so many books on leadership. Perhaps the highest number of books ever written in the field of management fall into the category of leadership. At the same time, the amount of knowledge we have about the complexity of leadership is pretty less, I would say. So I would approach with the stance where I would always respect what Albert Einstein said a long time back. The hallmark of a genius is the ability to express the most complex thing in the universe in the simplest possible manner. So bringing that into the perspective, I would say be brilliant on basics, as Tom Peters said, would be the approach that I would take in terms of discussing and discovering the dimensions of leadership. So I mean, looking at from a very basic angle, I would say a leader is a dreamer. The leader sees a dream and takes the team towards the desired dream. So the leader inspires, influences, and perhaps instructs the team so that the team is ready, the team is there with the leader in order to go towards the journey in reaching the desired expected results.
Now, there was something very interesting you said, because there's so much research that has been done on this concept, but that's the least understood. Now, my question is, even when you say leadership, all of us are very familiar with this concept, so much so that we don't even want to question as to what it is exactly. Now, your definition also talks about something, but how can we make this particular discussion close to the hearts of the audience? In other words, what is so special about leadership that we can touch on?
Okay, I would say leadership is a mindset, because we have this myth, always we look up at the top and we think that leaders are at the top, but I would say leaders are at the top as well. I can give you a recent example. I met a professor from London Business School recently. He was in town. He was talking about leadership. So when I had a chat with him, he said, we have a great leader in London Business School, and she is in charge of the toilet cleaning department. So that very clearly shows that leaders are there at all levels, but we always look up and say leaders are at the top. So leadership is a phenomena, it's a mindset where people come forward, they rise up to the situation and they take charge of a situation and they influence others and they take the necessary decisions and they take the team towards the desired results. So I would say everyone has the potential in developing their leadership, and also everyone can act as a leader when the situation demands. But unfortunately, the traditional education and the traditional upbringing will not really expand this dimension in people. And we see that very clearly in Sri Lanka in terms of the education system. That is where there is a big demand for leadership workshops for A-level school children, the leadership workshops for junior executives, and even leadership training programs for senior managers as well, because leadership is in great demand.
So I guess that is usually when you say leadership, there is a tendency for us to alienate ourselves from that and maybe distance ourselves if you are not in the positions we perceive to be as leaders. So the message you are giving is that everybody can be a leader, but how can actually everyone rise to the role of a leadership if they are not given a task to do? Now you describe the context, then you are going to come to the content. So can we talk about that aspect?